name, say my name. Say my name, say my name. Say my name, say my name.
Hey guys, welcome to the channel, welcome to the new crib. In this video I'm going to go over how I made all those sounds in that track you just heard. So we'll just jump into the project. If you want to skip to any particular parts of how I made each sound or element in the track, you can use the chapters below. Otherwise, let's take a look at the drums and see what's going on. Cool, so I'm just going to rattle through some of the sounds. I don't want to focus too much on the samples as it's a pretty straightforward beat, but I'll just show you some of the sounds I used. Most of them were doubled up, mostly just to get sort of the high and low frequencies. So we'll start with kick, then the rim, hat's pretty straightforward as well. Some rides. This was just like a couple of white noises stacked up. And this is where the main sort of groovy element of the drums come from. So I use quite a few different samples. They all sound relatively similar, just kind of short, snappy, percussive hits. It's kind of like a wood block and a clap. And with the main beat. And to create that kind of groove, what I did, I'll just show with these two here that I didn't use. I'd usually set it to every 8 steps and then just shift them along until I thought they kind of sounded alright with the kick and the snare. And then just added more sounds, tried out a few different variations, and yeah, basically just stuck with this kind of thing going on. You could replace any of these sounds with something else kind of percussive, and it'd probably sound pretty sweet, but yeah, there we are for them. And then I also layered it up with this sort of breakbeat groove that I just took from one of my other tracks, dropped it in, cut up a bit. This is the original loop. So same idea with these other percussive hits, just something there to fill in the gaps, just make it sound a bit more groovy. So without. Sorry, with. And that's pretty much it for the drums. Also had this tom loop from another track of mine. Now with the processing, I don't want to go into it too much, because all I really did was had a few EQs, just subtractive EQ to take out the frequencies I didn't want, and then some convolution reverbs just to put it in a room. Again, these were quite subtle, just add a little bit of space, most of them set to the bedroom preset over here. And yeah, just wanted to keep the drums quite dry, and I did send them all to a bus, and on that I had some saturation and bus compressor. This is pretty subtle, just to take down some of the peaks. So I was at a 2:1 ratio, slow attack, pretty quick release, and again that's just to knock off some of the higher notes. So the two bass sounds were very straightforward. Just used the 3X oscillator set to a sawtooth, and I didn't even change any of this stuff, and that's just plain like a short sort of dotted rhythm. So that would be, that would be sort of quarter notes, and you just move this one over here, and it feels a bit syncopated with the kick. So the kick would be there, and it kind of plays the notes sort of in between. So, and for this one, this is a smoother bass with elongated notes, and that was sort of to differentiate the parts in the track. So that's sort of when the verse comes in, and it just gives the track a bit of a different feel. So try and listen for the difference in the rhythm here.
Say my name, say my name. Say my name, say my name. No one else.
Yeah, and that was just to kind of separate this kind of maybe more of a verse, and the effects on that, just had some EQ, Maximus. I kind of changed the bass sounds. The original reason I had the Maximus in here is it's got this really useful tool here where you can sort of separate each of the frequencies. So if you go into the lows, this is the stereo width. Obviously you want your bass sounds in mono, so just use that to monetize the low end, and I think it was a mono stereo anyway with the bass patch that I ended up using in the final track, but that's quite useful on drums as well, or just anything that has a bit of a stereo width and you want to clean up the stereo signal in individual sort of frequency groups. Limiter was just there as a sidechain with the kick, and then another EQ just taking out all that high end, and that was it for the bass. So I've got 4 different pad sounds going on here, each one coming from a different source. So the first is a sample that I took from a analog synth VST, and just loop that part of the sample. So this is more the analogy sounding one. Pretty soft sounding. I think just use a low pass filter to take off a lot of the high end. The second would be vocal pad. So that was using a sample just from a voice. Been using the same one for that for ages. And all the pads are they're more or less playing the same notes. Some of them are octave up or an octave down, and a few would be playing harmony sort of in between. This one's got a little step down here, so yeah, it's cool just using different pads for different octave ranges as opposed to using the same sound for each one. Just make it sound a bit thicker and more interesting. This one here was the saw pad. So I originally used Diva to make the sound, but I recreated it with the 3x oscillator, just with the same parameters, and yeah, just use a sawtooth with a bit of detune going on. I didn't really touch any of them, just took low pass 2 and the filter down to around there. And then finally, this was from a Contact library. And so that one had phaser, a bit of distortion, EQ. Whenever I had the gross peak years, just had a quick sidechain effect. And then yeah, just kind of messed around with different effects. Had more or less just EQ, a bit of reverb on them, a phaser in this one, a bit of distortion going on in that. So this was out the effects on this pad here, and width. And that's just to isolate different frequencies to give it make sure the pads weren't clashing too much together. Yeah, so for the most part I didn't really touch them too much. Again, just wanted to keep them pretty clean, especially for this kind of genre. You don't really need to go too ham with the effects and all that. So onto the lead. Cool. So the original sound, I used this Juno emulation, but I'll demonstrate in the 3x oscillator. They do a free version of this, so I'll leave a description in the information download. You know what I mean. And yeah, so I just copied the same sort of parameters. So use a sawtooth and a square wave with a bit of detune going on the saw, and then put the phase randomness all the way to the top. The square wave was only about here, and then just use the envelope for the filter. So I took the filter all the way to the bottom, use the L pass 2, a bit of resonance, and then the automation is just the filter here. Most of the heavy lifting in the sound is done by the effects. So again with just a stereo enhancer. That's like a Haas effect. So just swung over to the right a bit. You do get some issues with when you put in mono. There's a bit of phasing going on. So just something to be conscious of. Filter, just taking out some of the highs. EQ, OTT to give it a bit more grip. And boost some of those higher frequencies. That was just for the sidechain. And then delay. So I think this is 8th notes. Just ping pong. And reverb. And that was it. And I also got these bleeps and bloops. Just had a little roll with them, a couple of notes before, that kind of velocity. So this one was just a sample, kind of like one of those toms just pitched up. That was a lot clickier. And then again on that, a bit of distortion using the effector. Tape emulation, which kind of adds a bit of white noise and stuff like that. By the way, when I upload the FLP for this, I'll just sub in Fruity Loops, VSTs as stock plugins. So I'll try and get the sound as close as I can, basically, so you don't need all these extra third-party plugins. Plugins. And that was another OTT and a bit of reverb, so without the effects. Cool. Moving on. So with the vocals, when I first started making this track, I just got an acapella from that Destiny Child song, and basically copied exactly the same kind of pattern that is in the Cyril Hand version, just as a place to start off from. And then went looking around for more original kind of sounding vocals and couldn't get anything that sounded quite as nice, so just ended up using that. So I'm not going to pretend that I'd really put much effort into the vocals at all. But there is a pretty useful trick that I did use for this, using something called formants. So I'll just demonstrate with these vocals here. So I'll just drag that in.
Turn off the sun.
Let's reset the pitch.
Turn off the sun. I don't need an extra light.
Okay, so that's the vocal. I'm sending that to 32. And I'm going to put on this thing called frequency shifter. No. Pitch shifter. And then go to voice. Now, obviously, sometimes when you speed up vocals either faster or slower, you want to change the pitch as well, kind of intuitively with that. Otherwise, the quality of the sample will get degraded. So if you're slowing it down, then you need to put the pitch down to compensate for that. Okay, so say, for example, you need to take the pitch down. Start off with that.
Turn off the sun. I don't need an extra light.
You kind of lose that original female quality, so you can compensate with the formant here by putting that up there.
Turn off the sun. I don't need an extra light when you are around.
So although the pitch changes, you can still keep that the original quality. It basically acts in the opposite way of accentuating the higher frequencies that are lost when you transpose something to a lower pitch. And vice versa, if you were to put the pitch up here, you could change the formant to down there. So I'll just show you how to do that in Edison, because that plugin is one that you have to pay for. So let's just swap that out. So you open up in Edison here, go File, Tools, Time Stretch Pitch Shifts. And here, if you know you need to take it down, say 3 semitones, you just do that here. So that's 1, 2, 3. It says the top left over here. for if you need, and then use the formant to compensate with that. You can preview it and that will change it for you. So real quick, we'll just take a look at the effects. We got Maximus. This was to change the stereo fields of each band, just make it a bit more mono. So before,
say my name, say my name.
rather
No one else
after.
around you. Say my name, say my name.
Yeah, it just cleans it up a bit. We have EQ, reverb,
Say my name, say my name.
filter taken off some of the high end, I think, and delay.
Say my name, say my name.
Pretty much it for them. With these guys here, this is kind of like some atmospheric stuff. I just had the sample in Edison. So we'll go back to this guy over here. Ooh, getting lost.
Say my name, say my name.
And then Command B or Control B. Had something like that going on, then just drag that in and then created like a volume curve. I think for one of them, yeah, I changed the pitch, so this is like a higher one. Finally, we got a few ornamental, atmospheric kind of hits. They're pretty much just sort of random noises that I time stretched, or percussive hits. By dragging samples out for a really long time, they sound cool. This was a hi-hat. And the original sample would have been that long. Could do like a bit of a sweep or something. I think that was just a kick that had loads of reverb on, and then, yeah, again, just stretched it out. And then you can play about with different effects. So got a gate, and then automated the panning. And here had a little reverse. Again, just a hi-hat sound. Cool, and that's pretty much it for the whole track. Done. Cool, so thanks for sticking around and watching. As always, I'll leave links in the description for all the VSTs, all the third-party free ones that I use in the project if you want access to them. If you have any questions about the project or how to get it or whatever through Patreon, then let me know, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, peace.